Good evening, everybody. It is 9:40 on the East Coast, 6:40 on the West Coast. Welcome to your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. It's totally my fault. I am willing to accept blame for being 10 minutes late tonight. uh,
I don't think. I think the tens of viewers will be fine with us being a
okay.
little bit on occasion. It's like not even a. I don't know if anybody even notices on a Memorial Day weekend anyway.
I
So,
guess
but
that's fair. I was celebrating Memorial Day in my own way, playing way too much Monster Hunter, as is wont to happen from time to time. And that is, in fact, why I am late. I was playing Monster Hunter and lost track of time. And
as
actually
long as you're healthy,
abandoned my friend mid hunt. That's how important the weekly stream is to me, James. Is I
were you
abandoned my friend mid hunt.
were you taking on a big giant Leviathan type of boss, or was it just
Always. That's all there's left at this point.
that's
This
all
far
stuff?
into the
Okay.
game, and it's like not just one at a time. It's two at a time now.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, we were
Well, sorry,
fighting.
friend. I guess for
No, he'll live. He'll live. We've put hundreds of hours into Monster Hunter. This one alone, and hundreds of hours into Monster Hunter in general. We've been
yeah.
playing Monster Hunter together since way back Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on the
hmm
3DS and the Wii U,
hmm
back in 2011. So, yeah, it's been a decade of Monster Hunter.
That's quite a while for franchise for a game franchise.
Yeah, no, it's and Monster Hunter 3 was, obviously the third one in the mainline series, but it was more like the Monster Hunter, like the sixth game, something like that. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're definitely milking it, and they keep making. It sounds like they're making successful iterations because it's keeping you engaged to
yeah,
where.
I mean, I'm close to breaking the 200-hour mark. I'm more proud of that than I should be, but
Well, I'll tell you an hour mark. I don't know whether I'm neutral. I feel neutral about it myself, but I was looking at my Neo 2 playthrough. I have logged in 532 hours on that
well
game.
done. That's respectable. That's
That's
respectable.
I don't know if it's well done or not. It's the equivalent to what, 10 weeks worth of full time work. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, two
Yeah.
months, 2 months and change.
I
It's a
mean,
lot.
but don't like. Okay, but here's the thing, right? My mother loves reading, and
Sure.
all of her free time is spent reading.
Yeah.
And the tens of thousands of hours in her life that she spent reading, no one would go like, "What a waste of time."
I know. I know. It's true.
You
I
know,
know. It's
it's
a
it's
weird.
it's totally nonsensical. It's not based in any reality whatsoever, right?
Yeah, it is weird because gaming is always perceived as a waste of time. It's like a brain drain and all that type of stuff. But to me, gaming activates your brain on a few different levels all at the same time, which I find great about it
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
something to pass the time with. I
And
mean,
honestly, depending on the game that you play, I mean, there's as much reading as there is in a novel.
yeah, yeah,
Probably not as good as most
yeah,
novels, but
yeah, yeah.
there's plenty
But
of reading
there's
to do in video games.
yeah. But on top of that, you're doing the reading, you're doing the reflexes, and you're playing with spatial relationships. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So and again, this kind of is the fault of this is kind of the challenge that gaming has because it's still one of the newest, still a newer medium. So we as
I,
humans
you
don't
know,
want to give it
I'm,
credibility on some fronts. It seems like.
I mean, sure, there's part of that, but like things like social media uh, has reached a degree of social acceptability and mainstream acceptance that video games still haven't
Yeah, that's
reached.
true.
And
Yeah.
so, like, its relative youth, I don't think is particularly viable anymore. I think a lot of it has to do on the nature of the medium itself. Is it lends itself to a particular type of audience, and that audience isn't as mainstream potentially as a lot of other entertainment mediums.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
so. There is accessibility with social media because everybody can do it. So therefore, the chances of acceptance are probably greater. And it is definitely younger than video games, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I
So
think also part of it definitely goes. It's sort of a self-inflicted wound to a certain extent. Video games over reliance on um, violence and melodrama
Uh-huh.
is definitely not assisting it. I mean, in games that aren't violent, they tend to have these extremely overwrought stories that are just scenery chewing nightmares, right? In a lot of the graphic adventures and that kind of stuff, and things that are considered well written in video games. I feel like most people who have opinions about these types of things would go, well, it was competent but great,
Mm-hmm.
So I think the nature of the video game industry's reliance on violence, and I mean, I'm not, I literally just was playing a game called Monster Hunter, right? Like the whole game is about killing giant monsters.
Sure.
Um, so it's not like I'm not trying to be right in on some sort of moral high horse or anything like that. But the fact that most video games tend to rely on violence definitely, it lends itself to a particular audience as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as mainstream. I mean, just like, it's just like in movies, right? An action movie isn't going to attract a particular type of audience, and same, a romantic comedy is going to attract a particular type of audience. The problem is, whereas in movies, both of these types of things can exist equally as successfully in the culture. Video games, it's a lot harder to do. It's a lot harder to reach the audience you're looking to reach, I guess, if you're not kind of sticking to the tropes and the status quo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have this just glut of open world action games with light RPG elements and a crafting system, right? I mean, like, those 4 checkboxes are kind of the perfect stew that the hardcore video game fan base just doesn't seem to get enough of.
Yeah. But it is funny because in its infancy, we had games like Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Defender. There was the story was literally like one sentence,
Sure, sure.
to carry it through.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think to a certain extent, like, video games by their very nature, regardless of how far the technology takes us, they will never tell as good authored stories as things like books or movies. And
yeah,
it's
because they're dedicated to one. They're dedicated. They only have one responsibility: a TV show, right? Because they don't have to worry about controls getting in the way,
right.
causing a barrier of entry of
Yeah, and the
psychic distance and stuff. Maybe.
yeah, and books and TV and movies. I mean, to a certain extent, I guess the audience is always a variable because they can fast forward to the end of the movie, they can
Yeah.
read the last page of the book, but in
Hmm.
terms of the audience variable, its impact on the overall consumption of the medium is far lower
It's a
than
passive
yeah.
activity in a way.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's
you're
not. I don't
watching it.
know. I don't know that it's passive. When I watch a movie, I'm extremely engaged and I'm actively
Sure. Sure.
participating in it. But
Sure.
I'm not like I'm not controlling the fate
Yeah.
of
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I mean,
yeah,
you don't have to exert a lot of energy or thought to just watch a TV show. It can engage you and make you think about things
right,
internally, but
right,
you don't have to do anything. Like whereas
right,
you actually have to move your thumbstick and stuff to do something in the game. Or
absolutely, yeah,
yeah,
and
so I guess that's what I'm trying to get at with passive. But
yeah, and again, because video games are there is a degree of removal from video games as well. Because there is the man-machine interface that has to connect the medium to the person.
mhm.
That has a bar of entry that raises the bar of entry as well, right? Like my parents, they look at a controller, and honestly, people my age that I know that didn't grow up with video games, they look at a video game controller, and the look on their face is like they're trying to read hieroglyphics without the Rosetta Stone, you know.
Hmm.
Um, um, and then, but even with my niece and nephew, their first experience with video games was actually on a tablet.
Yeah,
And there was a learning curve when they would come over and they would see me playing video games with a controller.
physical controller. Yeah,
Exactly. And making that connection, because we've been playing games for so long,
yeah,
the idea of pressing the A button to do this is second nature to us. But
yeah,
it's actually like 2 degrees removed to what's
yeah.
actually happening. you know.
Sure.
And
And
so
we've learned it over time.
and
Yeah.
we've learned it over time, and it's in our DNA, it's in our muscle memory now. But
Yeah.
someone coming to it fresh, like, it's not a given that press A does this. Like, that's a learned behavior, like a mouse pressing on a pellet to get a treat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really interesting. It's a really interesting case study. It's a really interesting concept or thought experiment, right? To think
Yeah.
about how far removed we are actually from controlling video games. And if I'm being really honest, I don't particularly think that VR is solving the problem, because if you look at VR, it's honestly in a lot of ways worse than traditional games.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, whereas a game, you have a TV, you have a system, and you have a controller. Okay, VR, you have this headset, you have these two controllers that look like, I don't
Yeah.
know,
It's just changing the
magic
delivery system
wands,
and the
right? But
interactivity.
it's all still, yeah, you're still 1 degree removed
Yeah.
from the actual experience, 1 to 2 degrees removed from the actual experience. So in any case, yeah, so that was we just jumped right into a rant, didn't we?
Another one, yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I had a 5-minute game review to talk to you about this week, but because we've already kind of talked, it's because we're already on a train of thought with video games. I'll save that for maybe next week or something like that. And we'll get into Calamity Jane stuff a little bit as we kind of keep talking
Yeah,
about.
let's take a look at this cartoon that we're theoretically making.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we're going to revisit something that we started pretty much a year ago. I think it was one of our earlier streams.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be a familiar face and terrible, but let's just go with it. So I will share my screen. And I don't know if you recognize this guy or not.
Oh, Mr. John Boy.
We're back to John Boy again.
Back to John Boy again, huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm changing it up a
wow.
little bit because he needs to be done.
Uh-huh.
This rendition, I was not happy. Like, this is early. So, I mean, we're talking about video games. We're talking about this abstract thing about putting inputs in and all this stuff. Like, so for me, it's interesting. Like, this was one of our earlier streams when I was drawing and talking at the same time. And I've gotten over the past, like, we've been doing this now. We have to do like a year celebration thing of some sort. We're already past a year of doing it
Yeah.
weekly.
Yeah,
but
that's actually, it's a really good point. Like,
it's a whole other conversation you and I have to have about
yeah,
that.
I know.
But when I was starting to draw when I was starting to draw John Boy, I was still like, it's already, when you're creating something, you're drawing something, it takes a lot of time and concentration to actually just do it. But then while you're trying to do a stream at the same time and hanging out with your friend and talking video game stuff, it's a whole other. You almost have to kind of put the drawing on the back burner and kind of revert and rely on your background taking for granted type of skill set in some ways. I'm not trying to say I'm showing off or something like that, but it's almost like when you play a video game for the first time and you play it for yourself, you play it, you're learning it, but then when you want to go take it to E3 and display it for other people, you have to be so good with the video game that you can actually engage with people and talk while you're playing it.
Oh yeah,
right?
I know that. I've done that
exactly. So I'm trying to give you the
times.
same. Yeah, I'm trying to give you the same. I guess the same metaphor. I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we were doing our E3 last year and just talking and hanging out, I was like, I'm thinking about this, and man, I got to think about this for a little bit. Now it's a lot like it's just second nature. Like now I'm just hanging out, we're just drawing, like kind of back in college, or you're hanging out in class and you're doing your programming or whatever else. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just the environment, you get used to it, and then you can actually do some stuff. But anyways, it does a long way of saying that this drawing sucks. I did a terrible job. I wasn't happy with this at all.
I mean, I don't disagree that like his. I mean, not to be negative, but like his head shape is completely wrong for John Boy.
First of all, this looks like some old dude. I don't know what the heck happened. I don't know what I was thinking when I was drawing this.
And like, anyways, was he being hazed in college? Is that the reason he only has one eyebrow?
I don't know. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. I didn't even catch that. Anyways, I kind of picked this up today and then focus on it, put in a focus mode a little earlier today. So I made let's look at the new version. So now here's the newer version of him.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So he's a lot more, because I actually had to sit down and like look at him for a little bit, and so I'm much happier with this rendition. So this rendition is out. I'm just gonna close it. I don't want to
Yeah,
save it. Nothing.
done.
He's gone, destroyed.
I mean,
So
it's
I'm gonna
pretty
pick it up.
remarkable how different it is, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty weird, huh? I mean, I kind of lucked out, but I spent some time, alone time, thinking about it and trying to take him apart a little bit. Because the thing about the Calamity Jane cartoon that we have here is, so far, out of all the characters, John Boy is the most challenging one because he's actually based on a real person or
Well,
a
he's
real
based
actor.
on John Boy. I mean, I want to be
Yes,
clear
he's
about this.
actually,
This,
yeah.
this is my obsession, so
Yes, it is your obsession.
I will
So
absolve you of any responsibility for this. But
yeah,
like I did, and for people who have been watching our stream for over a year, they've heard this rant before. But like for whatever reason, I've always been obsessed with this guy. I hate the Waltons. Like it's not a show that I
me
like.
too. That was
Right.
so boring.
But there was
But
just something about John Boy that just has always stuck with me. And so when we started working on this cartoon, I just got this idea that John Boy, this isn't the actor Richard Thomas, right, who played John Boy. This is John Boy from the Waltons, who has somehow found his way into Calamity Jane, right?
so now, obviously we're gonna have to officially. We're gonna say it's inspired by. I mean, we can't officially. I
Sure,
mean,
right. Like this isn't a
whatever.
licensed
Wink,
product
wink.
of
Yeah.
exactly. But
Sure.
yeah,
But yes,
unofficially, unofficially, officially.
yes. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, we could say the same thing about Mitchell Winchester, how he's inspired by somebody else as well. But
true.
wink, wink. We're like whatever.
Right. Mitchell's backstory is completely different than this other theoretical character.
Yeah.
But in any case, yeah. So like the idea is, and again, we've alluded to this in the past, but to a certain extent, Dry Gulp Gorge sits at a crossroads, an interdimensional crossroads.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why, in a universe of infinite possibilities, the Waltons is actually a documentary as opposed to a fictional TV show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that idea kind of has always stuck with me. And then when it came to kind of adding a character like that into the show, John Boy was the first one that came up, and so like there is sort of the loose justification for my madness.
And for me, and of course that madness translates over to me, and it makes
And now
it makes me,
right.
it fills me up with madness trying to get the likeness of John Boy to kind of get the general feel for him, for our cartoon.
I mean, I think I think it's pretty good, actually, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think if you just throw a pair of like big old wireframe glasses on his face, I'd say you're pretty close.
Yeah, I think I felt that way too, but I did want to get some affirmation from you being the fanboy of John Boy.
Of John Boy.
And then,
Right,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
let's be clear here. Not the Waltons. I don't like the Waltons.
yeah.
It was one of those shows, and everybody has them, right? When you're a
Mhm.
kid and you get home from school and you want to watch your cartoons, but the cartoons don't start until like 4:30, but you get home at 4, or a little bit earlier. And so whatever the daytime TV show is that's on,
You're stuck with it.
You're stuck with it because we're that old, right? Like we didn't
Yeah.
like Netflix streaming, none of that didn't exist when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And so the Waltons was one of those shows that would come on before Tiny Toons or Animaniacs or just watching Warner Brothers Looney Tunes. And so I would watch the last, and this is like this is part of the reason why I never liked the show, is because I'd only ever watch like the last 20 to 30 minutes of an episode, right? So I'd turn on the TV. And as a kid, there's no logic. Like, why didn't I do something for 30 other minutes? I don't know. Like, I don't have an explanation for you.
Yeah.
But so I'd watch the last 20 to 30 minutes of an episode of The Waltons, and I hated the show. But then, like, this character of John Boy always stuck with me because he always seemed so. Like, why did people like this character? Like, why did he not get ostracized for his? He was so saccharine and milquetoast and so uninteresting to me. that disinterest actually bred a kind of weird obsession that has brought us to today.
Yeah, and here it is, manifested just for today.
Yeah, exactly.
For our tune. It's interesting. So, out of all the characters, John Boy is the hardest one that I've had to design. Only again because he's sort of loosely based on
Loosely
reality.
based on reality.
So I have to get some sort of likeness of him where it feels like he is John Boy. But again, the challenge with this style that I've kind of wanted to go with our show is it's a flat style, so I can't use lines like this. This artist rendition is terrific for John Boy. Actually I don't agree with some of the decisions he made drawing him, but it's a pretty good spitting image of
yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, no,
great.
I agree.
The great thing, yeah, but the thing about it that he gets to use, it's a luxury, is he gets to use actual brush strokes. You know,
right.
He gets to draw.
Right.
I can't. I have to use flat shapes. So I have to use the flat shapes as my only way of kind of suggesting brush strokes, and to stay within the spirit of the show. I cannot use any kind of hash marks or anything. And so that's where the challenge is kind of at. When you're especially doing reality, you really have to go abstract in a strange way, but then try to capture some elements that are of John Boy. And I'm with you. I feel pretty good about where he's at now, to where I'm going to do the rest of his body tonight for the full character for our stream tonight, and we'll call him good because I want to move on. I don't want to work on John Boy anymore if I can help it. We'll see. For now, I mean, I think I'd have to do a 3/4 view of him at some point, but I think in most of the shots we have in the first episode, I think he's all pretty much straight on. There might be one or two shots where he's over the shoulder, but I think I can get away with not having to do too much work with that.
I mean, John Boy's not in the first episode all that much.
I think he talks. Does he talk? You know, we've changed the script a little. You know, I know we've kind of talked. We saw the script a little bit. Does he talk to Mitchell during one sequence?
I think he's actually had his one or two lines removed. We've given them to a different character. Actually.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's still in the episode, but he is no longer asking a question anymore, which is really all his purpose was
role, yeah.
in the first episode anyway. And he's not intended to be. And this is why I'm okay, like, being silly with this character, is he's not intended to be a primary character.
Yeah.
He is my own personal in-joke. Making you draw him amuses me, which is good enough for me, honestly. And just as a warning, like, the more you hate drawing him, the more I will write him into episodes.
That's why I need to temper my disdain. I need to go, wow, this is so much fun.
Yeah, exactly. You have to like remove my desire to find justifications to put this character into the show.
Oh boy. I'll try. I'll try to. I can't. I don't know if I can. I'm not that good of an actor to where I can say, yeah, this is so much fun.
Oh no, I'll know. Like, I'll know if you're telling the truth or not. So
yeah. I think we've been at this for long enough to where it's not. I can't pull that off.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question. No, it's yeah. But yeah, so I think this rendition of the character looks great, and to a certain extent, what I like about it is that it does have slightly more detail than a lot of our characters, but that's actually good in my opinion. And I go to something like Super Mario Odyssey, which every single world that you went to had a very, very different visual aesthetic, almost like they had a different art director for every stage in the game.
Okay.
And so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, I don't know that they actually did, but it's like the visuals are so varied that they could have, right?
Huh.
It's a beautiful game. Like I absolutely love the look and the style and the themes of that game. But my fawning over Mario Odyssey aside, what I like about the look of John Boy is, even though he's still in the style of the show, he's different enough that it makes it clear that he's not from here, right? To a certain extent, he is from, his origins are from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that's great. I mean, like, not that we would ever go this far down the road, but I part of me kind of loves the idea of actually rotoscoping in an actual human into an episode,
Uh-huh.
like 1980 or not 1984, heavy metal style,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And just really completely having an episode where a character is a completely different animation style inside Calamity Jane, right?
Yeah, I would love to do that actually. I think that'd be a lot of fun to kind of play with that. I think the world that Clementine inhabits is perfect for that
Yeah,
scenario.
and that's the thing, like, you know,
And there's a perfect villain that could actually help with that as well. The way we have
absolutely,
in our stable, but
absolutely,
that's
right?
a whole
And
other.
that's a whole other
Yeah,
conversation. But
yeah.
the for me every aspect of Calamity Jane for us is a love letter to animation, right? I mean, like, this
Hmm.
is us basically living out our wildest fantasies of cartoons. We're taking our collective years of experience as viewers of cartoon and combining all of it into one, gelatinous mass of
Yeah.
animation. We think that it works.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as we know, it
As
works,
far
and
as
we're
we are
still at it.
concerned.
But yeah.
And so it's not out of the ordinary to have other animation styles show up from time to time. And I love rotoscoped animation. There is just a really interesting look to rotoscope animation that I really enjoy, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, and like South Park did an amazing job of that in that episode where they did their homage to heavy metal. And I say, why can't we?
I'm with you. I think we should just rip off South Park because they always rip off Simpsons and just do the same
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, it's just like it's that age old adage: good artists borrow, great artists steal. So
Well, all I can say is I can be a great thief. I don't know about great artist, but I'll be a great thief for us. That I'm confident in.
oh,
So
you bring the world alive. Like,
so I try to
word,
do what I can.
words on pages are the skeleton. You give the cartoon muscle and flesh.
Well, thank you. I try, but again, it can't happen without the writing too. I mean, it is a here we are. We're just going to be manage us a little bit, but it is the writing too, just as much to
Right.
give it the
Yeah.
soul or to give it the inspiration to make stuff move or make stuff or illustrate stuff, to it. So it works both ways. That's why animation is such a fun medium because it
Yeah.
lets
No,
you
I
blend a
agree.
whole bunch of different disciplines together. So yeah, but as far as John Boy, did we talk about where he resides and
So John Boy,
did we talk about that in the first time we talked?
I don't think we really went into a lot of detail, and I don't think
Okay.
there's any harm because he's such a secondary character. We're not really giving anything away, but in my mind, at least, again, because this is my passion project, this isn't yours. I'm just relishing in making you do this work. Um, uh, um, he has somehow John Boy from the Waltons, again, not the actor. Um, John Boy from the
Hmm.
Waltons has found
Yep.
his way into Dry Gulp Gorge. And I don't personally have any intention of explaining it. If we find a really funny way to tell that story in an episode, that I'm not
Uh-huh.
against going into details. But I have no intention of explaining it right now, at least.
Hmm.
Um, but when he and as with and this is obviously this is a sorry, words left brain. This is a consistent thing, across the board for our world, is that people come from Dry Gulp Gorge from every walk of life, and they end up finding themselves here. And if they're
Hmm.
not finding themselves, then they're rediscovering themselves,
Hmm.
right? You can say that about Mitchell. You can say that about Calamity. You can say that about basically every character. And John Boy is no exception. He came to Dry Gulp Gorge, the son of a large farming family, and decided I don't want to be that anymore. And what John Boy decided he wanted to be was a chef, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our cartoon,
Yep.
and so he has set up an establishment called John Boy's Fine French Cuisine, and it is the premier French restaurant in all of Dry Gulp Gorge. It's the only French restaurant in Dry Gulp Gorge. But what no one is willing to tell John Boy, because I guess people are just too polite, or they just they like going out to eat, and there's not really any other options. His food's awful. It's just terrible. Um,
Because he knows how to do the fixings on the farm, but he doesn't know anything about French cuisine,
yeah,
right?
and exactly.
Safe assumption.
But here's the thing, though, is that he can get away with it because like most people, if not all people in Dry Gulp Gorge, they don't know what French is, right? Like,
That's
what
true.
is French, right?
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
John Boy's, well, this is French food, and their attitude is always, well, God, French food is so awful, and so it's just this joke within a joke for me, and I'm probably the only person that finds it amusing. But I love the idea that John Boy from the Waltons finds himself in Dry Gulp Gorge, decides he wants to start a new life, becomes a chef. He's a terrible chef, but he calls his food French food. And because his food is so terrible, everybody in Dry Gulp Gorge thinks French food is awful, which we as humans on Earth know is exactly the opposite of that,
Yeah, it's
right?
pretty dang good.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah. But
so
like, but I mean, that actually adds a lot of depth to again explaining why Dry Gulp Gorge is such a weird place with all these people that are finding themselves. Again, he's a farmhand. He knew where he's from. French food is really good, so why not give it a shot, right?
absolutely right.
And he does, and then the world that the people that he influences or talks to, he now has influenced them into thinking that French food's pretty dang terrible. I mean,
Right, exactly, exactly.
bad.
And so,
Um,
and again, it's this really overwrought gag that I would be willing to bet no one gets unless they watch this stream. But it amuses me, and it's one of those when I was back in school and taking writing classes. One of my teachers called those types of jokes a 10% joke. And what that
okay.
means is that only 10% of your audience is going to get it, right? But you do it, you can't write an entire episode of TV filled with nothing but 10% jokes, right?
Uh-huh.
Because then only 10% of your potential audience is going to watch the show, and that's not what you want. What you want to do is you want to put in one or two 10% jokes into an episode, because what happens is, and this has happened to me on numerous occasions, you'll watch a TV show and something will happen and you'll laugh because you get the gag, and everybody else who's watching it with you is like, what was that about? And then you feel
Hmm.
kind of smart, right?
Yeah, you feel like you're part of the club. Where
Yeah,
you're
you feel
part of
like
a secret club.
you're
Yeah.
part of a secret club.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And so like the 10% jokes are super useful for making making some of the audience feel like that they're kind of in on the gag, right?
Hmm.
And that the fact that it's writers amusing themselves. So
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
to a
But they
certain
need. Yeah.
extent, there's a bit of a narcissistic component to these types of jokes.
Sure. Yeah. You know what's funny though about John Boy? I just noticed this with him. If you want to go with the Western trophy stuff, which we kind of have as our backdrop for Dry Gulp Gorge,
Sure.
he's the truest one to a Western trophy
Yeah.
DNA type of character, I think, in our town right now.
Yeah. I mean, they were.
Just
I mean,
looking at it on top.
I believe that the Waltons were plains farmers, so
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they were in the frontier. They were
hmm,
probably they maybe not them, but their family was a part of the land rush, right?
yeah,
Um. So yeah. I mean, he is probably. I mean, I would argue that Clem is
yeah.
relatively
Clem is there
close.
too. Yeah, he's up
Um,
there. That's true.
but even then, Clem is more on the Native American side of things as
Hmm.
opposed to the prototypical or archetypal
The southern type
Western
of
cowhand.
yeah. Mhm.
And I think John Boy definitely fulfills that role. But again, and we've said this multiple times, we're not making a Western, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We are using a Western motif because we both find that appealing as a backdrop to
yeah,
our silly cartoon, but we're not
yeah,
making a Western.
yeah. But I mean, we definitely want to borrow elements from it here and
Oh,
there. We would do
sure. I mean,
that.
there are some amazing Western tropes that we would be foolish not to
Yeah,
take
not to
advantage
use.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just find that kind of interesting. That even with how much I love designing uh, John Boy. I mean, he's my favorite character to design. Um, yeah, so hopefully that's noted. But I think yeah, it's weird how he feels like he's the one that if we were making a if we were using our backdrop, he's the one that would actually not stick out. But he's going to stick out because
Because, right.
of how everybody else that lives in town.
I
It's
mean,
kind
and
of funny.
it's that kind of thing is the reason why I was so insistent on bringing him into the show, is that he in a weird way works on multiple levels,
Hmm.
beyond the gag of the French cuisine, beyond the fulfilling the premise of, you know, people from all worlds and all walks of life find themselves in Dry Gulp Gorge, and it's a place where they can reinvent themselves. Um, you know, the there's a lot of subtlety that it's kind of been thrown into this character that will, I mean, maybe be explored at some point, but it's not something I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
He's a gag character, and that's really all I need or want him to be. But even still, he has a degree of pathos um, that I think some, like, big budget TV shows never get, at least within the context of our silly cartoon.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I'm at a point where I mean, like I said, I'm still got to work on him, but I'm at a good spot where I don't feel like I'm struggling trying to design him anymore. He's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much there.
No,
Um,
so this is, and we're running a little bit long, but I thought I'd close on this question for
mhm.
you. When you're working on a character, and I think I know the answer, at least for John Boy, but I can see where it might be different. What is the hardest part of nailing a character for you? Is it their body shape or is it their face?
Oh boy. You know what's funny? I hate to use a cop out, but every character is different. There's
Uh
I'll tell you, I like to start out with body shape first.
huh.
Um, but then sometimes when I do the face and I tweak the body because it doesn't seem to something's not working, then I go back and retool the body versus the face.
I mean, in John Boy's case,
Sometimes,
I would assume that he's largely just a generic human body form.
yeah.
So,
In this case, so John Boy was all about the face first, then
mm-hmm.
because I'm taking for granted the body. The body's terrible right now, but I'll get him there. I'm not worried about it at all
Right,
because
right, right. Right
he'll
now, it
get
looks
to.
like a Canadian from South Park, but
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's not working at all right now, but it's okay. All I'm doing. Do you notice as we were doing our stream like here, I was just doing rectangle shapes and
sure.
putting things down for appendages and stuff, and I'll go back through and push it around and stuff, and he'll be okay. He'll be healthy by the time we're done with calling him done. Um, but yeah, in this case, I did start with the face first, but I think in other characters, I usually try to do a line of action and try to do the whole body first in one
Mm-hmm.
attitude kind of line, and then build out from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting question, though. I don't know which way I favor more. I think I do go more body first, though. Anyway, but it's
Interesting. That's interesting. No, it's good to know. It's good information to have. Okay. Well, we're at 40 minutes now, so I
okay.
feel like I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I'm glad to see my own personal passion coming to life. Um, and but yeah, I mean, like, for viewers, they got a bit of an insight into a little bit of the madness behind our method, um, in this instance. But there you go, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, James, it's beautiful. Like, it's a wonderful collage.
We're gonna make a dedication page for him, like
Yeah,
a
absolutely. No,
fanboy
absolutely.
page for him.
Little known secret, I am the head of the fan club, the John Boy fan club specifically, not the Waltons. But in any case, sorry. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be here same time, same place next week, unless I get sidetracked by video games again, and then we'll be 10 minutes late. But we will be here next week
in some form or fashion. If not, just catch us on our. We always put our streams up on for viewing later.
Absolutely.
So
yep. Absolutely.
Show
okay.
somehow.
So stay safe out there, and we will see you in a week, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
And we're clear.